Okay, so time for the unboxing of the GL66 Pulse. What's up guys, welcome back. Hope everyone has been keeping well. What are we reviewing today? It is going to be the MSI GL66 Pulse. Why we're reviewing this unit today? Because MSI asked me to, and I've been using it quite a bit, and as per normal we're going to be looking at the design, we're going to be looking at the specifications, and then we're going to be looking at its performance and how well it did in the performance sector. Let's look at this unit a little bit closer and see what it has to offer. Design, and in order to start off with the design, I have to give credit to a Belgian called, and I hope I'm not butchering this, Martin Verhoeven. I hope I pronounced that right. But anyway, so Martin Verhoeven is a 3D digital sculptor who was helping MSI with the 3D sculpting of this laptop. So when you go to the website, you can see that this is a gaming inspired laptop. But is it? We'll get to that when we get to our conclusion. So let's look at the design. It is kind of stealthy, but not quite. So it's got the aspects of gaming, but it also has the aspects of something that is a little bit more clean, a little bit more discreet. It's not in your face gaming. It is a little bit chunky, especially on its thickness, but that is because we have double the cores and double the threads in the processor, so cooling is obviously going to take a huge contributing factor to that. So overall, the measurements of the laptop is 35.9 centimeters by 25.9 centimeters by 2.3 centimeters. So it's not huge, but it's also not small. So I will get to this in my conclusion again, and this is why, is it gaming, is it not? Its weight is about 2.3 kilograms, so again, not too overweight, but it also not very carryable. I can pick up the laptop, and that actually is quite light. The entire design is made out of a plastic compound, except for the lid, which I assume is some form of aluminium or some cool metal. It does have some sleek aspects to it. Underneath the laptop, you can see that it has quite a bit of cooling, and it does show the cooling underneath. And we're dealing with at least 3 heat pipes coming from the CPU and 2 coming from the GPU, which I'll show you in the overhead. Looking at the sides, we do have a USB Type-C, which is USB 3.2 Gen 1. Then we have 2 Type-A's, which are USB 3.2 Gen 1 as well. So obviously both the Type-C and the Type-A are the same generation, so you have the same data transfer. Then we have one Type-A, which is a 2.0, obviously old 480 megs per second. We do have an RJ45, which is starting to lean more towards the gaming side of things, and it does have Wi-Fi 6, but we'll get to that on specs. The panel, so we do have a 144 Hertz, which is a little bit more performance than anything, but it's a 15.6 inch IPS panel. The keyboard is a full RGB. Well, let's go through this. It was very difficult because there's a program called Hey Lucky. No, it didn't work. This is just a little snippet that I want to show you guys because you can control the RGB via voice command. Scottish. Hey, looky! Mystic light green. Irish. Hey, looky! Mystic light yellow. Australian. Hey, g'day there, lucky little bugger. Mystic light yellow. Afrikaans. Hey, Lucky? Mystic light green, like the book, please. Eeuw, bokke! 4 ways. Hey, Bud, how's it, Lucky? Can you make Mystic light rainbow like Billy's? Yo, but it worked! Yo, check it! Okay, because Lucky has beaten every test, we are going to, it's activating, it's ready. We are going to try test it in another language. Senpai Lucky? Mystical light or yellow? Nani? Okay, so let's start off on specs, and it is a Tiger Lake, and no, I'm not going to do the Tiger again, but I may put on the hat, but it is the latest 11th gen processor, which is 10 nanometer architecture, but more specifically on this laptop, it's the 11800H, which is an 8-core, 16-thread processor. Starts off on a base of 2.3 and then clocks all the way up to 4.6 gigahertz with a 24 meg cache. Most notably, it does have a 45 watt TDP for those who are concerned about the thermodynamic framework. Moving on to RAM, as per normal, disappointed with the CAS latency, and the reason I'm disappointed in CAS latency this time is because generally the more that the RAM has to work, it's to preserve battery life. However, this battery life was good, and I'll get to that, but we're still sitting with a 22. It is on 3200, which again is the set mark for this processor, which you'll see as I scroll through it now. So it does operate at 3200. There is 16 in dual channel, and in gaming, no problems, no issues caused at all. So this has an HM570 Intel chipset, which means a couple of things, but most notably that with a CPU of 10 nanometers means that we've hit the PCIe 4 mark. Not that it's that important for a 3060, which this laptop has, spoiler alert for the next, I don't know, 30 seconds when I talk about the graphics card, but it also has integrated GPU, as well as the SSD NVMe will run at PCIe 4. So the SSD is an NVMe, and it is a Kingston 1 terabyte operating off PCIe 4, obviously not hitting the full capabilities, but still pretty quick. It hit just over 2,100 on read, and on write just under 1,700, so nice top speeds there, which means that when you are generally browsing on your computer, even opening up documents, playing games, the load times are going to be nice and quick, as well as your boot times from cold or warm. Graphics. So two graphics portions. The first one is Intel UHD, and that does mean that we have the ability to record and stream, which is really cool, and I'll get to that when we talk about the features. But more specifically, it operates off of the 3060, the RTX 3060 with 6 gigs of GDDR6. So not the highest end of graphics cards, but definitely not something to be laughed at, because it does output a higher performance than a 2070. So graphics wise, did really well on gaming as well, which we'll get to in performance. Battery. I was massively surprised. I tested it watching a Formula 1, and well, not the Formula 1 race, the actual qualifying. This lasted about 3 hours, and that was changing no settings. There was a little pop-up that came saying basically you've unplugged this, you do know this, and I just left it, and it had 3 hours. I actually SMS'd or sent a WhatsApp to MSI asking, does this battery ever die? 3 hours of video play, pretty much at full spec, while it was using the Wi-Fi module and sound and obviously display. It was great. The battery life in this was really great, which I think is 53.5 watt hours. So really great battery. Now from good to bad, the camera. The camera is a 720 pixel at 30 frames per second. So not the best camera you can get, but not the worst. It's HDR or HD ready in its resolution, and it is a 0.9 megapixel. So if you try and make that full screen, again, let me not tease it too much. If you are using it for the purpose of having conference calls or just calling or Skyping your gran or your dad, your mom, whomever, It will work and it'll work fine. However, if you were planning on using the streaming software to be able to stream in game at the same time, it is not a camera that I would use. So let's talk about some of the features. This has the Intel Graphics Command Center like the Stealth 15M. So I'm just going to run through that again. If you want to see it in practice, you can go look at the Stealth 15M video. But let's dive into the Intel Command Center a little bit. So you can see that you have the ability to record and save custom profiles and choose your resolution, either 1080, 720. You can stream, save to disk, and you can select where that's going to capture to. There is also advanced settings, like if you want to show your cursor, change your frame rate, your video bitrate, and audio bitrate. When changing to stream, you just put in your stream key, and once that's done, you can literally hit live, change your frame rate again, and obviously, depending on your stream, you can change that bitrate. Okay, so last on features that I will talk about, and I should have done Hey Lucky here, but anyway, is the MSI Command Center. And now this is where I got a little bit confused, because this laptop screamed to me gaming all the way, but the command center wasn't the Dragon command center, it was the MSI command center. Okay, so we can firstly see that there's monitor for CPU, GPU usage, disk, and memory. There's also free up memory. If you click that, it will free up some memory, as well as some system information that you can see, GPU temperatures, and so on. Then we have user scenario, where you can actually choose which performance level you want specifically, or you can have extreme performance, balanced, silent, or super battery. Now this is where I got a little bit, I don't want to call it upset, but in a gaming laptop I'd like a little bit more RGB functionality. A really cool function is the live update, where you can literally just scan and update. So one of the things where I did feel that MSI did come up short was in the RGB settings, which is gimmicky, yes, but some people do like to have it. And maybe this isn't fitting with, I am a gaming laptop, or I can be a gaming laptop, but I can also be something else. But we only had few functionalities when it came to RGB settings, which was steady, breathing cycle, and color shift, which was very limited in choice for me. So, performance. This laptop performed phenomenally well in performance, I really must say. So I started off with Ada 64, where I stressed the laptop's everything except for the GPU for about 10 minutes. Now, during those 10 minutes, it hit 99 on one core, but the average across all cores was 96, which is phenomenal. And that was only at pretty much the start, before the thermal started to act. We hit an average of 80.9 during a full stress test on Ada 64. So phenomenal performance under stress for 10 minutes, which would have shown if there's anything to be concerned about in thermals, which I believe honestly there isn't. Next, I used Superposition Benchmark, and it hit just over 13,000, as you see. But the thing about Superposition Benchmark is it doesn't just use laptops, it uses full build desktops. And to hit a mark of 13,000 is a relatively good score for a gaming laptop. So let's look at games, and I did two, Crysis 2 and Mass Effect Andromeda. So one a little bit of an older game, one of a very much recent game. So both of these games, let's look at Crysis 2, were set to ultra settings, as well as on Mass Effect Andromeda was set to ultra settings. Now, let's look at some of the gameplay of Crysis 2. Now, let's look at some of the gameplay from Mass Effect Andromeda.
Holy shit. What was first contact protocol again? No deadly force unless fired upon. Yeah, said no one in the field ever. How do we handle it? Just be ready if this goes south. It usually does. That's the last of them.
Now we can see that both of these games were very, very smooth. Let's firstly take a look at some of the frame rates. Crysis 2 was hitting 5960 because this is the cap of the game. So we can't actually get refresh rates higher than that, but it was very, very steady on 5960, 5960. On the game of Mass Effect Andromeda, we had refresh and we had FPS all the way up to 144, dropping sometimes down to 89. But these obviously are relative to how much is going on in the game. So really, really good performance. But how did the components fare? In Crysis 2, we can see that the CPU hit a maximum of 69 degrees, which is obviously really, really good. Didn't really stress out the CPU that much, but in Andromeda we did hit 95 degrees. So this is an indication that the game is a little bit more demanding on the CPU, and the CPU had to work a little bit harder, remembering that the max thermals for the CPU is 100 degrees, but just like we saw in Ada 64, it didn't really stress out the CPU that much. Obviously it was working hard, but the thermals are able to keep up with it, which is exactly what you're looking for. Now, let's take a look at the thermals from the GPU. In Crysis, the GPU hit 58.6, which means that this GPU was pretty much laughing at this game. It really didn't stress it out whatsoever. A little bit higher in Mass Effect Andromeda, where it hit 76.9 degrees, but still quite a good and safe temperature for a mobile GPU. Wrapping up on performance, both of these games again are high demanding, and with the stress test and the benchmarking, the cooling in conjunction with the CPU, in conjunction with the 3060, really good gaming performance. But it all matters on how everything's concluded. Okay guys, time to conclude. Now, I've tried to do this conclusion so many times in my head, and that's because this laptop is sending me mixed signals. On the one hand, it's saying, I'm a gaming laptop. And does it have all the specs of a gaming laptop? Yes. It's got a great CPU, it's got a great GPU, it's got dual channel RAM, it's got 144 Hz panel, it's got everything. But when you go into the computer, it doesn't have Dragon Center. Now that's MSI's gaming center. This has MSI Center, just the normal, one that you would find on any normal MSI laptop. So I don't know if this is MSI's way of saying that this is not for gaming, or not maybe just for gaming. So a little bit of confusion sets in there for me. But let me get one thing straight. This can game. It games well. The things that added to it is the battery life was really good, and it was light. It's not the lightest, but it is fairly light, and it also is a compact size. It's not this massive thing. It just occupies your entire desk. So I believe that this is being aimed at just your everyday person that wants to game but also wants to do work on a laptop without having to fork out what it costs to build a massive tower. So in conclusion, this laptop retails for $31,999, and now that is a hefty price to pay. Now, can you get a 3060 cheaper? Yes. Can you get a 3060 cheaper with a 8-core 16-thread? Maybe. I'll need to check, but do your homework. But the one thing that really stood out for me on this laptop was its cooling. I am very much about cooling. Cooling in gaming for me is everything. And the laptop performed phenomenally well when it came to cooling, as we saw in the benchmarks, as we saw in gaming. The Cooler Boost 5 is a phenomenal design by MSI. Is it loud? It's obscenely loud. It's annoyingly loud, but that can be cancelled by earphones. Guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this review. Please like it. More importantly, please share it if you found it to be valuable, and please subscribe to the channel. Cheers. Goodbye.